Now all of a sudden, you got drive, you got courage, you got motivation, you have energy. You naturally have access to all this wonderful stuff that you need in order to make some change to fix maybe whatever is that primary problem. So anger is not bad in and of itself. It's just we need to be in control of our anger, and we need to know what's going on with it. Okay? So if you see that your child is angry a lot, it's going to be important to stop and find out what's going on underneath. What are they worried about? What are they sad about, hurting, grieving over, that kind of thing. And if you're finding that you're having difficulty getting there, do consider therapy as an option. Okay? And if anybody is looking for a therapist, I can always, if you give me what your insurance is, I can always go take a look at the provider list, give you a sense of who I'm familiar with on that list, and look to lead you somewhere with that. Okay? All right. So this is my favorite parenting idea. It is by far the most powerful thing that you can implement. And it works whether you have little ones or if you're married to one. It's a very powerful thing, and it's green. So you want to give them control of their lives while you stay in charge. So it's choices. We all use choices, right? Get into bed by 9:30, or tomorrow you're going to be in bed at 9 o'clock. That's a choice, right? You do this or you do this. But it's not. That's a threat. Do this or else this is going to happen to you. And they know it. They feel that. So a true choice has 4 parts. And you got to say all 4, and it doesn't come out naturally at first. It does for me because I've been practicing it for years. But a choice actually has 4 parts. You have to say what choice A is and then consequence A. And then what choice B is in consequence B. So I'll give you an example. My son, what I didn't mention before is I told you I have a 13-year-old, right? I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have a 10-year-old son who will soon be 11. He has Asperger's. So I have some special needs stuff going on there, okay? And then I have my 7-year-old who I'm almost certain is going on 17. And they're laughing because they've met her. And she's wonderful. At least 5 minutes a day. So I'll give you an example with my son. He's got Asperger's. Organization is definitely an issue for him. But I need to give something that motivates him, makes him want to remember. So he knows if he comes home prepared, he gets video game time. And if he doesn't come home prepared, he doesn't. It's not a punishment. It's just an understanding. This is just the deal. So I phrase it this way. So come home prepared, and you get video game time. Or you're missing something, and then there's no video game time today. Usually what we say is, we use choice A and consequence B. Come home prepared, or else you're not getting video game time today. So, one of the reasons I love this concept so much is because I'm not the bad guy at my house. I truly, truly am rarely the bad guy at my house because I gave them a choice. And then if I process it with them, I don't even have to process it with the older two because they just know. If I see some kind of frustration or anger with them, I'll ask them and I'll be like, quite bluntly, are you upset with me about this? And I was just like, no. Right, why? Well, because I could have gotten my video games. Oh, well, that's true. You know what, tomorrow, I bet you'll get your video games tomorrow. And I'm very encouraging about it. I don't then drill it. One of the things you'll notice is consequence B didn't include the consequence and now I'm going to make you feel bad about yourself. It was just consequence B, and I let it speak for itself. So my children understand that I am not at fault. They are at fault. And it's important because taking responsibility for stuff becomes more and more important as they get older. The amount of adults that I work with that don't want to take responsibility for stuff. The amount of people that the divorce rate in America is right about 50%, okay, for first marriages. For second marriages, the divorce rate's right about 67%. The primary reason for that is that the divorce happened because it was the other person's fault. It wasn't their fault, so they didn't have to fix anything. So they went into the next marriage carrying the same bag of problems into that one. I love when things are my fault. When I've gone through some marital stuff with my husband, I will sit there and tell him, please just tell me what I can do. I want to. Because if there's something bad or difficult going on in my life, I want to feel like I have the power to do something to help myself. I don't want it to be his fault. Make it my fault. And that's what I teach my children. Because then that's where you get your power from. It's not always easy to hear, but that's where you get your power from. So, the other thing is delivery is everything. I'm not yelling these choices at my kids. I'm taking a step, and I'm just saying, listen, it's up to you. Whichever way you want to go with this is fine. But then I really have to be fine with it. The thing I get to take away from my daughter, I'm going to get to this Rolodex here. The thing I take away from my youngest one all the time is I sing to each of my children at night. The poor things are completely warped. They all think I have a good voice. It's really frightening. But I sing to her at night. She loves it. If she's sleeping out at somebody's house or something like that, she'll call me before bedtime so that I can sing her song. So when in fact, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I still sing to my 13-year-old. She would be mortified if anybody knew that. But can I tell you, it's such an amazing bonding thing that I've done with them. And it's the same exact song every single night. Which you'd think would be boring, right? And apparently, I don't sing all the right words. It's a Mary Poppins song. I didn't know. What can you do? So we have our own creation. But it's become a very helpful thing in our lives because they use it as a self-soothing technique. There's such a strong association between this song and that relaxed state when they go to bed that all they need to do is hear that song. They immediately start yawning. I tend to yawn through the song a little bit at this point. And when my daughter got the top of her thumb sliced off on a carnival ride, I went and held on to her. I started singing that song to her. Actually, I just was humming the song to her. 90 seconds later, she was just limp in my arms. If they hear that song, it's an amazing thing. But it's something that I started and kept going with. And I'll tell you, I'm sure your 13-year-olds aren't going to want you to start singing to them at night. I got that. I got that, you know? But there might be some kind of quote you can bring in and say to them right before bed. Doing something to start making an association like that. The natural consequences, you want to make it as natural as possible. For instance, if it was that you'll just get the one chore, and if you don't, well then you can have 2 chores. Okay? Or you're going to respect something about a phone. You put some kind of limit on a phone, and if they don't respect that, well then you don't get the phone at all the next day. You know, but you want to make it natural consequences. So my Rolodex is all the things that my children love that I can take away from them. Doesn't that sound cruel and awful? But it works really well. And I know them well. And sometimes, too, it's positive things. It's a matter of, my consequence, A, might be, you know, if you do this thing, then you get this freedom. If you don't do this thing, then you just don't get the freedom. You know, that's up to you. So it doesn't always have to be bad stuff. You can throw some good stuff in it, too. It gives them a sense of power. Another thing. As they're in middle school, something is different. Have them develop what the consequence will be. All right. So if I come into your room and you haven't turned your electronics off, has that ever happened to anybody? Like it's bedtime and yet all of a sudden there's a blue light hanging out right around it, right? Okay. So you can just like, listen, that's the deal. We know that you have a tendency to do that. You tell me, what do you think should happen at that point? Now, there are some crafty kids that'll come up with really small, ridiculous things, right? And then you can say to them, it's just like, that's all right. I mean, if you want to make this a joke, then you're not a part of it. Or you want to treat it seriously, and then you're a part of it. It's up to you, whichever way you want to play this, right? Another choice thing. But honestly, most children will be harder on themselves than you will be. And just having that sense of power that they got to say, and that they helped create it, you will find that they will follow through on the consequence and not give you as hard a time about it as well. Because, like, you know, they knew what they were signing up for. They helped sign up for it. You're no longer the bad guy. We talked about that. The giving them control. You know, it's funny. I really have terrific parents. I have very, very lucky to have terrific parents. So I asked my dad for some feedback once. I was just like, what do you think about, my parenting? How do you think I'm doing? He goes, I actually think you're doing a terrific job. Great, okay. So what critique would you give me? Give me some kind of critique. He says, well, I probably wouldn't use choices as much as you do. And I said, okay, fair enough, that's fine. I said, but you know what the truth is? I use choices for me about as much as I use choices for them. Because if I got to stop and think this through, I've taken a breath and I've now thought it through. Because where I might want to be yelling at them, I've actually taken that minute to step back, and it makes for a little more of an in-control parent. So, I mentioned something about never having to yell again, right? I mentioned that at the beginning of this. I put yelling right into my consequences. Sometimes, if I can't come up with anything else, I just let them know that you can do this, and I'll stay calm, and we're good to go. Or you can do this, and I'm going to be yelling at you. And sometimes it's just that simple. They don't choose it often, but like I said, my 7/17-year-old occasionally will choose that. And but when she does, I will tell you, my yelling is yelling, and it's not screaming. It's a little more controlled because I had a chance to just kind of. And what my older two love is they'll because as soon as I'm done with that, I immediately switch it off, and then I just talk to them normal, like nothing's going on. Like it would look like a comedy scene from a sitcom or something if you weren't living it. So it slows you down. How are we doing? Anybody have any questions?
Great stuff.
Yeah, we're okay? All right. I don't see anybody nodding off yet, so I figured I'd do something. All right. So, we have projects when we're in school, right? So choices was your first project. We're on to project number 2, and that is understanding them. So, one of the first things you want to understand is psychosocially development. Some of you may have heard of the famous psychologist Erik Erikson. So he came up with a number of different stages that they go through, and there's conflicts that occur for all of us, including through adulthood. And I put the 6 to 12-year-olds just because some of our 12-year-olds are closer to 6 than they are to 18. And so some of them are still going to be dealing with this industry versus inferiority issue, okay? Some of our 18-year-olds are like 24-year-olds and vice versa too. So just know your kid. Basically what they're trying to figure out in that first phase is, how capable am I? How industrious am I? Or how inferior am I? How do I feel about myself? Your self-esteem is really developing in large part from 6 to 12 years old, okay? So you want to be sensitive to that. You want to be careful not to be putting your children down. And it is amazing how much we do that without even realizing it. I just had one of my kids come in who, I love this kid. She's 17 years old, and she did one of those experimental evenings where she tried some marijuana, and she had some relations with a guy. She didn't go all the way, but she had some relations. Well, Mom found out about that. So clearly this kid needs to be in therapy, because no 17-year-old could possibly do anything like that and not be messed up, right? So, but it turns out she's actually not so messed up. And she really owns it, and she's terrific. But Mom will not stop badgering her. Every time there's an opportunity, she takes little digs at this kid. This kid who is in 11th grade, and she's already signed on for college because she's so unbelievable in lacrosse. She's got straight A's. She's always had straight A's. She's got a great group of kids. I mean, she's a good kid. And yet Mom won't stop digging at her. And then when the kid had the courage to stand up and say something and did it appropriately, what did Mom do? Oh, I didn't realize how sensitive you were being. Sorry. And so when the mom comes in and I'm talking to her, she's like, I said, I didn't realize you were so sensitive. I was being very empathetic. I said, yeah, well, we both know that that's not exactly how it was said. So you can continue on with that, which is fine, or you can make a difference because your daughter just came in here and she was crying her eyes out. So that's first up. Identity versus role confusion. This is where they're getting into. And this is very much a push-pull kind of thing. Trying to figure out, who am I in this world? I see who you guys are as my family. I got that. So is that how I'm supposed to be? But then I'm hanging out with these friends. And that's really my main, just so you know, the family, you're not number one anymore in terms of who they're looking to. You had your chance.